B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim, Shavua Tov. We're continuing our series of Jewish HaShkafa based on the extraordinary Sefer Emunah V'Bitachon on the Chazon Ish, of the Chazon Ish. Tonight's shiur will be for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Esther Malka bat Sarah, Mashiach ben Avigail ve'Avram, David ben Nesriya, Doris bat Jora, Yitro ben Avraham, Talia bat Sarah, Orit bat Ilana, Joshua ben Noach, Alex ben Noach, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba and Zivug Egun for Netanel Yosef ben Avraham and Reuven Chaim ben Palaparel. Also Atzlacha Rabba for Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Nesriya, Shaul ben Farzane, Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, and Louis ben Marsha. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam bekol mikol kol, them and all of the other supporters, all of the other donors, all of the other fans, all of the other people that are watching our shurim, the talmidim, the followers. Bless each and every single one of you, and Mamash, thank you very much for all that you do. Spend time with us and learn with us each and every single week. So, a little bit of update for anyone who didn't see the post we made on our WhatsApp groups and also on our Facebook groups. Baruch Hashem, B'siyata Dishmaya. We're happy to announce that today was the official grand opening of our Kollel, our first Kollel in Eretz Yisrael. It was Baruch Hashem. It's in Yerushalayim. It's a Kollel for Dayanut, and it's a extraordinary endeavor that we've been working on in kind of secret already for some time. And Baruch Hashem, it started today. It's we had a extraordinary grand opening event where even though it's a relatively small Kollel at this point, we're only starting with a handful of avrechim, but these are no regular avrechim. These are extraordinary avrechim because this is a kollel for dayanim, or people that are about to become dayanim, where the prerequisites for someone to join this kollel, they have to finish the first, I would say, half of their testing and learning for becoming a dayan. And now they're in the second stage. The first stage takes about 10-12 years, and the second stage also about the same, depending on how fast people study. Could be done perhaps even in half the time, depending on certain people. So most of these guys are older Talmidei Chachamim, but these people are very, very serious, and from what I know about each one of them, from Rav Ephraim, these are exceptional Talmidei Chachamim. We have our new recruit, an extraordinary Talmid Chacham of his own, Rav Shlomo Sharvit, who is going to be the Rosh Kollel over there, and running the program. And B'ezrat Hashem, this is going to be something that is going to help us do a couple of things, because there's two requirements for someone to join this Kollel. Number one, they have to have already finished like I said, more than half of the Dayanut program. And the second part, which is dear to our hearts, is that they have to spend at least twice a week, and if possible more, twice a week doing lectures to do kiruv. So we follow what the Gemara says, to lilmod v'lelamed, to learn and to teach, not just to the traditional approach that's been common over the years in kollels, is to have Talmidei Chachamim learn and delve into Torah. And sometimes you'll see some people that are going out there and doing lectures, but they're usually not the highest of caliber of students, and sometimes they won't be treated as such. So here, what we're trying to do and what we're doing, Baruch Hashem, is we're starting a unique Kollel where these exceptional Talmidei Chachamim that are a stone throw away from becoming Dayanim, becoming Jewish judges, are also going to be doing lectures to give chizuk to Am Yisrael, whether it's Halacha or it's a specific issues, Musar, all types of different lectures, Bezrat Hashem. Each of them is going to be doing, and our goal is to expand this program and this across all of Eretz Yisrael, Bezrat Hashem. We already have this one Kollel, which, like I said, we just started with a handful of Talmidei Chachamim. We have two other places that we're in talks with and gonna Bezrat Hashem move forward with, and really the goal is to do something that is necessary at this point, which is to fight for the Torah. A lot of fools say that the Torah doesn't need you to fight for it. Hashem doesn't need you to fight for him, and they're right in that aspect of Hashem doesn't need us for anything, but he does want us to. And right now, with all of the liberal, lefty, anti-Torah running the government, there's and trying to pass all types of laws to destroy the Torah, whether it's to allow intermarriage or the missionaries, the Christian missionaries that were, that's illegal in Eretz Yisrael, but still they're celebrating there because no one is actually enforcing the law. And in fact, the government is helping the Christian missionaries, especially during this pandemic that we had, where you had several planes full of Christian missionaries fly into Eretz Yisrael while the rest of the country was not even allowed to leave their houses. So obviously it looks like their money is buying people in the government to allow them to do whatever they want. And if that wasn't enough, the Israeli government is or the court, Imach Shemam V'Zichram, they just said that donating money to the Christian missionaries, which are, again, according to the law of the land, it's illegal to missionize in Israel. If you donate money to them, you'll get a tax deduction. So it's like saying in America, if you donate to the mob, you'll get a tax deduction. So this is in essence what's happening right now. It's obviously an outright war on Torah, and the people running the government are trying to pass more laws to outlaw Torah in every way possible. There's a law in the that they're trying to pass that is going to forbid people from doing kiruv, it's simply turning into Greece or Rome in some aspects. So while a lot of people are losing hope or getting scared, this is not the right attitude. This is not the right HaShkafa. The right HaShkafa for a Jew right now is to fight for the Torah. How do we fight for the Torah? Build more Torah, do more shulim, get more people to teach, do everything and anything possible to spread the truth. Because if the Satan is being permitted to work so hard and try to stop the Torah from being spread, this also means that this is an opportune time to do so. So what we're going to do, Be'ezrat Hashem, is build a kollel in every single corner that we can. If we, Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the funds to do it from all of these generous donors and all the different people that care about the Torah. This is one of the missions that we have right now, and we started it. And Baruch Hashem, as a sign of support, we're a huge, extraordinary siyata dishmaya. Our little kollel, our extraordinary kollel, got a visit from the head rabbi of Israel. Today, the grand opening was an event with the Rishon LeZion, Rav Yitzchak Yosef, the head rabbi of Israel, Sephardic, of the Sephardic Jews, and really for all of the Sephardic Jews around the world, came and gave a shiur at the event, gave a blessing and support to our organization, Be'ezrat Hashem, also gave support to all the work that we do here in America and around the world. So Baruch Hashem, there's really, it's a lot of chizuk coming from very, very big and chashuv people, very important people among Klal Yisrael. Many different Talmidei Chachamim have been contacting me over these last couple of weeks, hearing about the different battles that we fight for the sake of Am Yisrael and for the sake of the Torah, whether it's against the people that are spreading rumors that are false, or people that are just heretics that we've gone against. Baruch Hashem, quite a few Talmidei Chachamim have been contacting me out of the blue, which is mamash messengers from Hashem. People that I've never spoken to in my life, people that I didn't know, are contacting us and showing a lot of support, Baruch Hashem. And one of the main things that we saw the head rabbi of Israel come to our Kollel, give a lecture, give a special blessing, which for anybody who doesn't know, this is not really a common thing for Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, because again, he's technically an employee of the government. So for him to publicly support an organization is almost unheard of. So Baruch Hashem, to see that, to hear it, we have it on video. Don't worry, we'll publicize it, later this week, Bezrat Hashem.
רגע, לברך את הרבני, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, אשר יגורו בעזרת השם, שיחתכו את ידו, שעלו בעל הבא, לחגל להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא משאלות ליבם, לטובה ולברכה, שבכל אשר יתנו, ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכרו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, ותהיו תורה לאווירה, בן ואביהם.
שנה שעברה אני לומד תורה, 200,000 תשובות בהלכה, כל לפי עסקים של תשובות בהלכה. נבחן ככה. נבחן ככה, הרב ירון רeuven. 200,000 תשובות בהלכה. כן, אני אומר. זה הכל, כל התשובות, זה הכל לפי חיזוק.
תחזק אותו. זה לא שבא.
צריך לעשות חיזוק.
And we also had someone that's, also an extraordinary Talmid Chacham, who was the head rabbi of the city of Netanya, and now is one of the top rabbis in Israel. He's in the Bet Din of Yerushalayim, Arav Zamir, Arav Yaakov Zamir, who is also the Chavruta of Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. For many, many years, they learned together, and they've been learning together for decades. And he is pretty much the right-hand man for Rav Yitzchak Yosef. He also came to the event. He also gave a special blessing. He actually wrote us a very beautiful letter of support for the organization, for all the things that we're doing, and also an askama for my new book that's coming out, Bezrat Hashem. Which is obviously very, very special that you have such serious Talmidei Chachamim go through the book, read it, and give their stamp of approval, if you will. So Baruch Hashem, he also attended the event and made a recording too. So Baruch Hashem, lots of wonderful things happening in the organization, Bezrat Hashem, and that's one of the things that they mentioned in the shiur today is going to be the part of the topic, or really the topic of discussion today in our shiur, as of course HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings the cure before the ailment. So whatever we needed to know for the shiur, Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu already provided it before we even knew what the shiur was going to be about. So lots of good things happening at the organization. As I said, the Kollel is up and going. It's already started a few days ago, but like 4 or 5 days ago. But today is the first official day, and these guys are going to be learning full time, and it's going to be the first step, Bezrat Hashem, on a very, very big journey. And Bezrat Hashem, we're looking to expand this, to do much more. And for all of those amazing partners that that want to be part of it, or that are part of it, ashraychem v'ashrei chelkechem. So with that being said, there's obviously a lot more, but let's go into the shiur itself. We'll talk more about other things later on. How does this all have to do with Jewish HaShkafa? Because generally speaking, When we think about HaShkafa, we think about behavior. We're thinking about the mindset of a Jew, how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to treat certain things, certain difficulties, whether it's the modernizing that is happening in different communities around the world, or it's simply new things that are coming about. This is the HaShkafa is a critical part of a Jewish person's life. But many people think that as long as you follow the Halacha, which is the law itself, then you're okay. And there's really nothing that could be further from the truth, because although the HaShkafa, which is the ideology, and the Halacha, which is the law, are in essence two completely different things, they are part of the very same nervous system, the very same spiritual nervous system that a Jew is supposed to have, and they're supposed to work together. Because just like a person may have arms and legs that are all part of the same nervous system, but if the arms and the legs, or the head, or the heart, or the different parts of the body don't want to work with each other, then obviously you have yourself a very, very serious problem. So the Chazon Ish has been telling us over these last few weeks about how it's critical for a person to not only learn Musar, learn how to behave like a Yid, learn how to act like a person that's of higher caliber, and not like one of these people in the streets that acts like an animal, has to act a certain way. So you have to learn Musar, you have to correct your flaws, especially in the flaws in character traits. You have to make sure that you're not just doing things based on whatever makes sense to you. You have to do things based on what we have as our teachings. But again, learning Musar in itself is not enough. In fact, the Chazon Ish says, if a person only learns Musar, they will become evil. Inevitably, they will become evil. Why? Because they will not know when to use these lessons, these ethical lessons, when and how to use them. So that's why sometimes you'll hear people scream out ethics, 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 while they are unethical themselves. So it's just like this recent excuse of a Rabbi Meza says how he's very ethical and how he wants to debate and how he wants the truth out there, while him and his partners Klokowski and Otero were caught lying. And instead of addressing the fact that they were caught lying for not 1, 2, or 3 different lies, but literally everything that comes out of their mouth has been a lie, and instead of addressing it, saying I'm sorry, or at the very least not spreading any more lies, what do? They spread more lies, and in essence they try to veer the attention of the public to something else, to something completely unrelated. And this is the way of liars, unfortunately, that fools a lot of people, and it happens very often in politics, where you'll see a politician get caught lying, get caught with blood on their hands, and instead of them admitting their guilt and simply being apologetic for it, and perhaps trying to rectify the situation, many times, as the extraordinary book Perfidy says, these politicians are simply unashamed about their wrongdoing, because they say, listen, that's my ideology. This is my ideology. Killing people, stealing, whatever wrongdoing that you guys view as wrongdoing is part of my ideology. So you can't fault me for my ideology, which is really extraordinary. It's an extraordinary insight that I've never heard before, but it's 100% on the money. It's 100% correct, where you see many of these politicians are caught stealing, lying, doing everything wrong under the sun, and instead of running away, instead of going to some cave and never coming out again, instead of going to jail, instead of anything happening to them, rarely will you ever see such a thing happen. Instead, they'll just continue with their life. They're still recognized as the former president. They're still recognized as the current president. They're still recognized as some politician. And in fact, sometimes they get upgraded. They were caught as a liar as a Senate, but now they're running for to be a president. And this, unfortunately, is a part of society that apparently many people don't pay attention to, or in fact, simply ignore intentionally, where you have liars continue their lies without denying it, without being ashamed about it, and in fact, just simply using the excuse that this is their ideology, and even though their ideology is full of lies, even though their belief system and their acts are completely embarrassing, they're not embarrassed. They're not embarrassed, and in fact, they vow to continue many times. So this is the way. This is the way where, a person surely has learned ethics at some point in his life, whether it's in grade school or otherwise, but does not know how to use it. Does not know how to use it and when to use it. Hence the reason why the Chazon Ish says, you can learn a lot of Musar, but if you only learn Musar, you will be evil. On the other hand, if you learn Halacha, you learn the law and only the law, you don't learn how to behave, you will also turn into an evil person. Why? Because although you will know what's right and what's wrong as far as the law is, you won't know how to apply it and where to be a little bit more concerned about other people, how to do certain things, how to have the right approach, with who to be aggressive, with who to be a little bit more soft, how to speak to people, how to communicate. If you're just going to be black and white, you'll end up being a person that's very evil, that hurts a lot of people. So here we see that halacha and musar go hand in hand together. They're a necessity. But here, the Chazon Ish says further that there is an extraordinary amount of responsibility for Am Yisrael to learn the halacha and to make sure that we support those people that are the experts, that are the ones that are above and beyond the norm. People that are going to stand for the truth, people that are going to learn and teach the truth, because there are exceptions among society. We're not like in communism where we think everyone is the same. We're not like feminists that think that everyone is the same or should be the same. We're not in like one of these just wrong ideologies that think that everybody is in the same. No, there are people that are better than others. There are people that are in a higher, upper echelon, if you will, and there are people that are lower. Everybody has a role. It doesn't mean that the one that's higher can take advantage of the one that's lower. It doesn't mean that the one that's higher is someone that is necessarily more valuable as far as their life itself is more valuable than the lower automatically under all situations. But there are circumstances where you have to know what the law is. You have to know what the law is, where, for example, as we learned last week, if you have a Talmid Chacham, your rabbi, that's captured by evil people, and you have even your father that's captured, but he's not a Talmid Chacham, and you have an opportunity to just free one of them, you have to free the Talmid Chacham. You have to free the one that is a Talmid Chacham, that your rabbi, you have to free him first. Same thing also goes when issues of when people are captured. And you see that there are sometimes the negotiations that the Israeli government does are very damaging to society, to their own society, where, for example, you had certain Jews that were prisoners by these Arabs, these terrorists, and you see that, in order to get one Jew back, they'll free 1,000 terrorists that are killers that are going to end up killing a lot more than one. This is not such a simple halacha to say, listen, the life of a Jew is worth so much, therefore you're allowed to just free 1,000 terrorists. It's not such a simple thing to do. Although that Jew is extremely valuable, to just say we're allowed to free all of the rapists, pedophiles, and murderers for the sake of one Jew, it's not necessarily such a simple case. What does make it simple or simpler is if that person that's captured was ever a scholar, a Talmid Chacham. Why? Because we have an halacha that says that you're not allowed to pay for a prisoner, a Jewish prisoner, more than what he's worth. But if he's a Talmid Chacham, you are allowed to pay more than what he's worth. Why? Because he's not like regular people. So here we see that there is a difference. There is a difference in the perspective of the value of the Talmidei Chachamim, the scholars. Now, the Chazon Ish goes into further elaboration of things that we need to know. And what are they? In chapter 3, section number 18, he says the following, ומן החיוב להעריך בחיוב לימוד ההלכה מפני מיעוט התלמידים בדורנו, והשרידים מהנידחים לכל אפסים בים ההבלים של רוח עוועים, מעטים וספורים המה, ומידת האהבה והחמלה לשקוד על השרידים היחידים האלה שלא יידח מהם נידח. So the first section says something extraordinary, where it says it's necessary to elaborate on the obligation to study halacha because of the decrease in the number of students in our generation. He's talking about that although there are people learning Torah, perhaps more today than any other time in recent history, especially with the availability of Torah on the internet, the Be'ezrat Hashem app, which you can download for free, or many other Torah websites. You go to Divine Information by our own very dear friend and extraordinary Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi. You download his app, and you'll see an enormous amount of Torah. You won't need to go anywhere else. You can, because there are other sites. There's Hidabrut, there's Chabad, there's Breslev, there's Torah Anytime. There's a lot of other organizations, but needless to say, there's a lot of Torah that we've covered, myself, Rav Ephraim, Rav Mizrahi, and others, that there's an enormous amount of Torah that a person can learn today without leaving their house, without doing very much. And this has made Torah much more accessible to the average person anywhere in the world that you have internet. And even without internet, the availability of books today is so extraordinary that anyone that reads a little bit of history of what it was 500, 600, 700 years ago, of how a person that wanted to learn a sefer literally had to find out which rich person has this in their library, and then have that person, that rich person, allow them to sleep in their house for however many months it takes them to read that book, because there was only one copy available. People didn't have money. This is also part of the reason of why you'll see many of the older Sfarim have the Ktav Rashi. Ktav Rashi, the script of Rashi, wasn't actually created by Rashi. It's called Ktav Rashi, but it wasn't created by Rashi. And the reason why this script was actually used was because it saved space. It saved space, and this is why you'll see it, all of the Rashi commentary and many others, whether it's the Tosfot or other Chachamim, they wrote their books with the same script because it saved space, because paper in those days was very expensive. So it saved space, and many times you'll see that many of the Chachamim in their own books or so on, you'll see that they also write their Chidushim in the margins. Why? Because it was very expensive. Paper was extraordinarily expensive, and they didn't want to waste it. And sometimes you'll even see a whole sefer written by a Chacham. You'll have however many hundreds of pages of Chidushim and talking about some type of extraordinary issues, responses, midrashim, and so on. But then, last half of the last page of the sefer, or the last half page, he'll talk about something completely unrelated to everything that he covered in the book. Why? They didn't want to waste the space. They figured, I still have a half a page or 3/4 of a page left. Let me stick in there a few other chidushim, even though they're not related to the rest of the sefer. So you see that the availability of Torah has increased so much that it's actually a case against us if we don't learn Torah, because it's so much easier for us to have Torah. You can get it on your phone, you can order it on the internet, you can order books for very, very cheap, from Art Scroll, from Feldheim, from Sefarim Center, from many other Jewish organizations that sell books. You could even order some books from our website, Be'ezrat Hashem. We have our collection of Rav Nisim Yagenza Sfarim in there. But the point being is, books are easy to get today, and if you are a serious scholar, and but at the same token, either you don't have room or you don't have the money, to fit 100, 200,000 books into your house, which pretty much nobody does, what do? There are websites, Hebrew books, or other websites that literally give you access to hundreds of thousands of books on the internet, sometimes for a fee, sometimes for free, depending on which books and how much you want of the book. But the point being is, literally, within a couple of $1,000s, a person can have access to hundreds of thousands of books today. In the past, this was completely unheard of. So the access to Torah has changed to our favor in a huge way. But the amount of people learning halacha with complete depth, like these avrichim that we have in the Kollel, like avrichim like them that are toiling for the truth, and not just toiling for the sake of learning Torah, but rather toiling to see what is the bottom line, underlying truth of everything. How to get to the truth of this halacha or that halacha and so on. The Chazon Ish already says in his day, there are very, very few. Very few, or a decrease in them, if you will. Few are the survivors. Those who succumbed are scattered everywhere, caught up in the inanities and the bewilderment of the times. To prevent those few remnants from falling away as well is certainly an act of love and compassion. This, by the way, is also one of the reasons that motivates us to literally not just go and continue sponsoring Avrechim like we have for years. We've been sending money to Avrechim for years already, every month. But we decided to take it a step further and start Kollels. Kollels all over Eretz Yisrael, Be'ezrat Hashem also in America. Start different things for unique people, because this is also another way to show Hashem that we love Him. And that's actually what the Chazon Ish is saying here, is that to prevent those few remnants from falling away is certainly an act of love and compassion. An act of love and compassion for who? For Hashem. For Hashem and His Torah. So when a person says every single day, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and then it says, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, B'kol levavecha, b'kol nafshecha, b'kol meodecha, that you love Hashem with all your heart, with all your life, with all your money. So, are all of us really fulfilling that? Oh, we just say it every day that we love Hashem, but in reality, as soon as there's an opportunity to invest in Torah, as soon as an opportunity to help somebody that's struggling, we say, listen, we love them, but not that much. So this is one of the things that a person needs to do. They need to initiate, they need to push themselves, to put more and more out there as far as Torah. And especially, he says, when it comes to these few remaining people that are studying halacha. Now, you can say, wait a minute, in my local synagogue, there's people learning halacha. They also learn midrashim. They also learn some, Yalkut Me'am Loez. They also learn the Parashat Shavua. They also learn a little bit of Gemara. They learn a lot of different things. Is that the same? Is my local synagogue any different than your Kollel? Okay, maybe the Kollel has higher level scholars, but guys at my synagogue are also learning, so that's the same, right? Wrong. And we're going to show the source for that in a moment. But here the Chazon Ish is saying that there is a battle. There is a battle after these special neshamot that are learning halacha. Now, the Gemara in Masechet Brachot asks a question. Page 8a. Rav Chisda said, what is the meaning of the verse, Ohev Hashem Sha'arei Tzion mikol mishkenot Yaakov? That Hashem loves the gates of Zion more than all the sanctuaries of Yaakov, of Jacob. This is a verse in Psalm chapter 87, verse 2. What does this verse mean? You could say, listen, Hashem loves the gates of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, more than He loves all the other cities, all the other places. And that's a nice commentary, but that's not what it means. That's not what it means. Because it could have easily said something, this same exact thing in a different way. So the Gemara explains the following. It says, Ohev Hashem sha'arei metzuyanim ba'alacha. Ohev Hashem Sharei Tzion, that Hashem loves the gates of Zion, of Tzion. Tzion is also spelled with the same letters as Tziyun. Tziyun is the target, is the marker for a for something. So Hashem loves this gates of that are marked. Which gates? Sharei, gates, are also symbolic for places of teachings of halacha, Bet Midrash. So the Chachamim say that Hashem loves the gathering places distinguished by the resolution of halacha, meaning places that are set aside for the study of Gemara leading to the determination of halacha. People that are learning and toiling of what the actual halacha is, to become poskim, to become dayanim. And he loves them. So what's this sanctuaries of Yaakov? So he loves these places of halacha, these kollels, these places that are teaching and so on. Great. What is this Bet Yaakov then? So the Gemara says he loves them more than the Bet Yaakov, which is the sanctuaries of Yaakov, which is symbolic for the synagogues and study halls. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves places where people are learning only halacha versus the places that are synagogues and even a Bet Midrash, where they're learning other things. Does that mean that your synagogue is bad? Absolutely not. There's a reason why David HaMelech in Tehillim calls it a sanctuary. A sanctuary is obviously a very special place where the Shekhinah comes down. The Shekhinah of Hashem comes down to the sanctuary. So of course it's a very important place, and there is no better way to describe the Bet Knesset. So it's a compliment to the Bet Knesset. But at the same token, it is secondary to a Kollel. Why is it secondary to a Kollel? So in our Kenes, in the event today, Rabbi Yaakov Zamir said a few words, and he brought this extraordinary insight in the name of the Maharsha. And the Maharsha says, although there are many people, old and young, unschooled and learned, who study Torah in synagogues and in study halls, their focus is not on halacha. Rather, they focus on scripture, meaning to learn the weekly parasha, on Mishnah, on other sacred texts from which they cannot definitively conclude the halacha. On the other hand, there are certain sites where Torah scholars gather and extract the law through their erudition. These gates, these sharim, are the areas most beloved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So although the chabura that you have at your local shul or the Bet Midrash, surely HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares for it, loves it, it's fantastic. You learn the weekly parasha, you learn some Gemara, you learn different things. But if it's not a place where the only focus there is to figure out what is the will of Hashem. What is the will of Hashem as far as this specific law? What is the will of Hashem as specific of this law? Meaning the halacha itself, then it is secondary to it. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that there is the mansion that a person can have, and then you have, the house of the king. These are two different places. Although they're all beloved, although they're all expensive, although they're all beautiful, everybody understands that there is a priority list here. So that's what the Gemara says. This is what a person needs to know about these special places. Now, the Gemara says something further. And these teachings that the Bet Midrash, the Kollel, is a much more dear than the study halls or the synagogues, is in line with the teachings that we heard from Rabbi Chia bar Ami, who said in the name of Ula, which is, Miyom shecharav Bet HaMikdash, en lo le'akadosh baruch hu be'olamo, ela arba amot shel halacha bilvad. That since the day that the temple, the Bet HaMikdash, was destroyed, the Holy One, blessed is He, has nothing in His world but 4 amot of halacha. What does this 4 amot of halacha mean? Hashem obviously does not occupy space. He has no body, no likeness of a body. So what is this? What is it really saying here? That here, the Chachamim are teaching us something extraordinary. That at the time of the Bet HaMikdash, the Sanhedrin used to gather at the chamber of hewn, of the hewn stone, and they would paskin halacha in this place. So that's where the Shekhinah would rest. That's where the divine presence would be at all times, because that's where you get to the bottom line truth of everything. But since the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, the Shekhinah has no place to go. So where does the Shekhinah go now? As we learned from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Pirkei Avot, he says a person that learns Torah, the Shekhinah rests on him. And the Chachamim say in the Gemara in the Masechet Eruvin, page 48a, that a typical person, requires only 4 amot, which is about 6 feet of space. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu rests on that person. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Shekhinah, the Shekhinah rests on that person. He is not resting on a Bet Mikdash anymore. There's no Bet Mikdash. There's no Sanhedrin. So where does the Shekhinah go? He goes to a certain person. So that's the most amount of space that HaKadosh Baruch Hu occupies, if you will, in the world. On a person that's toiling to figure out what the truth is. On a Rav Yitzchak Yosef. On a Rav Ephraim. On a Rav Ovadia. On a Rav Eliashiv. On one of these Gdolim. On one of these Tzadikim that is toiling on the Halacha itself to figure out what is the truth. Now, of course, a person can see this and say, wait a minute, if this is the case, if Hashem's Shekhinah is only going to go to these Gdolim, then he doesn't value my Torah. But this would be wrong, absolutely wrong. It's not what we're saying. If you learn Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu's Shekhinah will also be on you. A person that learns an enormous amount of Torah and delves into Torah and actually applies it to their life can see not only their behavior change, but even their physical features change. And as I've told you guys in the past, there are even physical feelings that a person can get as a result of learning a lot of Torah. This is not coming because, if you read a lot of words, you'll end up getting a good physical feeling out of it. If you read a lot of Harry Potter books and a lot of newspapers, you're not going to get any good feeling out of it. On the other hand, you read a lot of Torah, you learn a lot of Torah, you apply it, and you sanctify yourself, you could get an extraordinary physical feeling from it. So the Shekhinah surely goes to any person that toils in Torah. But here we see that if there's a place where there are several people or even many people that are toiling for this truth, that's obviously even more than perhaps a single person. Then we have the commentary in the commentary of the Mishnayot by the Rambam. And the introduction, the Rambam goes into this at length, and into this particular topic at length, and says a few things. I'm going to read a few parts of the commentary, not the whole thing, it's a little long, but to see what the Rambam was saying about this. As far as the difference between your average person, your average layman, the average person out there in the world, versus this Torah scholar. Because many times what the heretics and the fools and the ignoramuses of the world would like for people to think is that everybody is equal. This is the going ideology in the world today, where somebody would that doesn't want to change, doesn't want to apply the Torah to their life, say, listen, I don't believe such and such. Show me a place that it says so. Okay, no problem. You show them 5 places of where it says whatever you said in the shiur. No, I don't care what anybody says. This can't be true. Yeah, but you just said, show you a place. Like I had this person make a comment. The other day they saw one of the lectures that discussed punishment, Gehenom, and so on. And he said, show me in the Torah where it says it. So I said, not only Torah, I'll show you a few places. Here you have Parashat Korach. Go look at the commentary, Parashat Korach, of what Sheol is. What Rashi says, that's what Sheol, that's what Korach is. Until this day, that's another name for Gehenom, one of the 7 names for Gehenom. Then you can look at the oral Torah. You look at the Tanakh. You look at the prophet Isaiah, the last verse where it talks about their worms will never die. This is a description of the seventh chamber of hell, where the people that go there never come out. Then you go to the oral Torah. You go to the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, says it over there. If Talmidei Chacham, scholars must be careful with their words, or they're going to lead their students to Gehenom. Then you go to further. You go to the Gemara. Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 17a, and Masechet Bava Metzia, and Masechet Shabbat, Masechet Sanhedrin, and countless other places it talks about Gehenom. You have it over there. Then you have it in the Baal Shem Tov teachings, in the Reshit Chochmah, and many Musar books, and many halachic books. Literally, you have thousands and thousands of places that talk about punishment of Gehenom. So instead of a person saying, wow, I guess I was really ignorant about this teachings, so it's time for me to learn at the very least. If a person is not looking to change, what are they going to say? I don't care what anybody says. I know the truth. I feel it. This is a very sick person. A very sick person. It's a spiritually sick person. And unfortunately, there are many of them in the world. That you will bring them the truth and it doesn't make a difference. Even if Moshe Rabbeinu came to them and told them the truth, they wouldn't change. Baruch Hashem, the majority of people are not that spiritually sick. The majority of people will accept the truth, or at the very least will be willing to hear it. But there are certain people that it doesn't matter how you give them the truth. They feel like they know. They feel like they know. Usually people like this, I disconnect from. I stop helping them because, from my experience, there's no help for such people. Once people start telling me that they feel like they talk to God and God talks to them and all types of stuff like this, this is beyond my scope of expertise. I think that people like this should be instituted in some type of mental illness of some kind. It's not for me to help. Or sometimes you'll have people that simply don't want the truth. You'll tell them the truth in 50 different ways and they just simply don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want it. We can't help them. You cannot help a person that doesn't want to help themselves. So here the Rambam is telling us something extraordinary. He says you have to know that there are a lot of people in the world, but not everyone is the same. That not everyone is the same. Every item exists, that every item that exists has a purpose for which it came into existence. And clearly, of course, this applies to man-made products. Before a blacksmith forges a saw, he has an idea of how it will be used, and consequently, how it should be shaped. Obviously, the saw's purpose is to cut wood. The same is true for all man-made objects. However, in regards to the products of the divine craftsmanship, the reasons are not always evident. The purpose of some fruits, herbs, metals, stones, and animals may be ascertained with little reflection, of others with much reflection. And still others may resist identification except through prophetic revelation or the like. There was one man who knew as many of these purposes as humanly possible, and his name was King Solomon. And his knowledge of these matters is described in the book of Kings 1, chapter 5, verse 13. So here, the Rambam first gives us a little bit of a preface, a little bit of a clarity that don't ever think for a second that there's anything in the world that doesn't have a purpose. But although it is relatively possible and even easy at sometimes to identify the reasoning behind things of this world, when it comes to things of the divine, of the Torah, of the spirituality, you're not necessarily always going to understand the reasons behind everything. Well, skipping a little bit is considering that every item's purpose is to somehow serve man, we are duty-bound to ask, what is man's purpose? This question may be resolved by examining man's abilities. Various creatures have particular talents. A spider has the capacity to weave a web, an ant can store food. Man has numerous and varied capacities. But the one that distinguishes him from all of the other living beings is his faculty for reason. It is only in the development of his mind that a man can realize his potential. All his other functions merely assist in assuring his survival, so that he will have the opportunity to perceive truth and discern wisdom. And the greatest of all truths and the pillar of all wisdoms is the knowledge of God, his oneness, and all fields of iniquity related to this. The purpose of other branches of knowledge is solely to prepare one to approach the study of the divine. Thus, man's chief function is to comprehend godliness. However, this is not sufficient. True scholarship demands the perfection of one's deeds. One's behavior must match one's insights. Godliness is unrecognizable in someone chasing after his lusts, abandoned his own sensuality. Only man who unites theory with practice has achieved the ideal. So here he's in essence saying the same thing that the Chazon Ish has been teaching us, which is that it's not just enough to learn the Halacha, the laws themselves and so on, but you actually have to perfect your character traits. Because only the combination of the two would make a person godly, would make a person holy, would make a person something above the animal, if you will. Now, then he says that what then is the purpose of the multitudes of persons who do not measure up to this idea? Meaning, first he starts talking about how there are certain people that are exceptional. You know what, let's actually go into that section. He says, where may we learn the theory and where may we conclude the practice? In the words of our sages, the words of our sages blaze the trail before us up the mountain of God to the pinnacle of piety. The lone soul in the study hall, poring over the Gemara, delving into Halacha, charting his own observance, he is the culmination of creation. Thus he is the final purpose, God's portion from all of his handiwork. The Holy One, blessed is he, has nothing in his world but 4 amot of halacha. So here he's saying that the pinnacle, the best of all creation, is the people that are delving into the Torah itself. But then there's, okay, so now you're going to say, you have everything, you have animals, you have plants, you have trees, you have houses, you have weapons, you have tools, and so on and so forth. Everything has a purpose. Great. Surely, man has a purpose. Great. Now, how does a person know this purpose? By learning Torah. Now, if a person delves literally their entire self to the learning and practicing of Torah, this is the highest caliber of people in society. So we already know that everyone has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. To find out what the purpose is, you have to learn the Torah itself. The one that learns it and applies it is the best of all, is the best of creation. But then at the same token, it leaves us with a question. What about the guy, the girl, that doesn't learn and doesn't even apply? Are they useless? Are they meaningless? That's the question. And the Rambam is going to answer. This raises the question, certainly, that, is with such a person being exceedingly rare. I mean, a person that delves all of his life to learning Torah and practicing it is rare. So what is the purpose of the multitudes of people who do not measure up to this idea? The purpose is twofold. One, to keep the sublime individual company, meaning to form a supportive community around them. To have people in the world. He needs a wife, he needs children, he needs people that live in his community to do all types of things. 2, to serve such individuals by cultivating the land, manufacturing tools, and producing fabric, clothes, and the like. If the men of learning had to do all of this on their own, even the lifetime of Methuselah, who lived over 1200 years, would not suffice to master all the necessary skills. Moreover, such preoccupations would leave them no time to study Torah or perform mitzvot. So here the Rambam says something that is politically incorrect to the highest capacity, but 100% truth. He says, what are all these rest of the people in the world? What are they for? They're not all learning Torah. They're not all practicing. He says they still have a purpose. They still have a purpose in God's world. What? For Hashem to use them to create the world that's going to serve these Torah scholars. Because the Torah scholar is the one that's giving life to the world. But in order for them to live, they need somebody to build buildings, to make food, to build stores, and so on and so forth. And the Rambam gives an example. He says, for instance, that sometimes we'll see that a person is a Torah scholar and he's not succeeding in life as far as money and so on, whereas the guy that is not going according to the Torah is succeeding in a very big way. Some fool, some person that's even anti-Torah is succeeding in a big way, and the Torah scholar is struggling, barely making $1,000 a month. So how could that be? The Rambam says, no, this is not a confusion. It's not a confusion at all. Why? Because sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu will use these people that are succeeding in a very big way in order to serve the scholar. How? He'll give the fool the money, the resources, and the inclination to build an extraordinary tower in the middle of nowhere. Because he wants to make money, he wants to show that he's succeeded, he wants to have something, right? But why does Hashem allow this person to do this? Because one day, 400 years later, a Torah scholar, a tzaddik, is going to walk by and he's going to need the shade. That's how important a Torah scholar is in the eyes of Hashem. That's how important a person that's righteous in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that delves into the Torah, is in the eyes of Hashem. They are the lifeline of this world. Im lo briti yomam v'layla, chukot shamayim v'aretz lo samti. The prophet says in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if not for my covenant, meaning if not for my Torah, day and night, the rules of the world will cease to exist. Whether it be gravity or the different elements of the periodic table, whatever it is, all of this stuff will cease to exist if not for somebody learning Torah. So that means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sometimes give a multi-billionaire or even some average Joe billions of dollars, millions of dollars, and an inclination and desire to build a huge tower or a bridge or a whole city just because there's going to be a Torah scholar that will benefit from it. Such is the value of the Torah scholar. And now that we go back to the original teaching where it says, listen, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has only 4 amot. He only occupies the 4 amot, the 6 feet, if you will, of the Torah scholar. Wherever he's learning, that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. Now, if you have a place where there's a bunch of Torah scholars, there's more than one, there's 2, there's 5, there's 50, there's 500, there's 25,000, that is the greatest thing in the world. Surely this is more than a synagogue or even another place of learning that is not toiling to the same capacity. So here we see, Rabotai, that what Rav Yaakov Zamir said in the name of the Maharsha, that it's not just learn Torah and therefore you're in the same caliber as the Rishon LeZion, the head rabbi of Israel. You're in the same caliber as the Rambam or any other. No, it's not the same. It all depends on what a person studies. The more a person toils, the more a person is going to elevate their neshama and also elevate their spiritual status. Now, of course, there is a different excuses that the Yetzer Hara is going to give a person not to learn halacha, but learn something else. They're going to learn the weekly parasha, not twice a week with one commentary like they're supposed to, according to the Shulchan Aruch. They're going to learn the weekly parasha and only the weekly parasha. That's all they're going to learn. Okay, but what if you already finished that by Monday or Tuesday? Oh, then I'll just do it again. Yeah, but you already did it. Why don't you learn, some Musar? Nah, Musar is too tough for me. I don't want to change. I think I'm okay already. All right, why don't you learn some Halacha? No, listen, I know I'm not supposed to drive on Shabbos. I know I'm not supposed to eat pork. I already know enough. Okay, why don't you learn something else? People don't want to learn something else. They have a lot of excuses, especially when it comes to the laws themselves. Now, if you tell them, listen, why don't you learn the laws? Say, listen, I'll just tell me yes or no. No, but why don't you learn a responsa, something that's, requires you to strain your mind a little bit, to arrive to the truth and understand how we got there, to learn the Shas, to learn the Talmud, and understand not necessarily what the law is, But how did the sages arrive at that law? When a person wants to learn how to think like a Jew, he wants to learn how to think, you need to learn the Talmud. Without learning the Talmud, without learning the Babylonian Talmud, a person is never going to know how to think like a Jew. They may know Halacha, they may know yes or no, they may know different stories in the Gemara, they'll may know stories in the Midrash, they may know a lot of different things. But how to think like a Jew, they're not going to know without learning the Shas. Of course, once a person studies the Shas Bavli, and has already covered it a couple of times at least, then obviously they should start learning Talmud Yerushalmi as well. But nonetheless, a person that wants to learn how to think has to learn the Talmud Bavli. Now, they can't learn this Talmud Bavli simply on their own and thinking that they're going to know everything. No, you have to learn it either with another Torah scholar that has covered it already, someone that knows what they're doing, or at the very least, with all of the sages, the commentaries that you'll find, Rashi or Tosfot or other Chachamim that have discussed, at the very minimum Rashi, but of course others as well, so you know that your conclusion is correct. You can't just decide that whatever you're thinking is right, which is the next point that the Chazon Ish will go over in a second. But to go into a lot of these things that is going to be, on one end, mentally stimulating, on another end, mentally draining, because it's not like reading a story. It's not like reading the weekly parasha where you're familiar with half the stuff because you already heard it last year and the year before and 10 or 20 other times. No, when you're learning Gemara, it's, even if you've learned it 5 times, it's always new. Because there's always something else you're going to find out from it. Another new idea, another new way of looking at it. It's as deep as a deep gets. This is going to teach a person how to think. Now, also as a side note, for one of the things that a person that wants to do Tikkun Abrit, once the person has gotten to a point where they've already stopped, but they still want to clean up their mind, one of the things that's necessary is to learn the Talmud. To learn the Talmud. But you'll see that learning the Talmud has a lot more Yetzirah than learning other things. Why? Because you'll see that the Talmud has the same numerical value, Gematria, as the Satan's wife. Because this literally kills that stuff. It kills all of those foreign desires and so on. Now, when a person wants to study Talmud, automatically the Yetzirah will show up. And his wife will show up and try to distract the person in different ways. And many times will make a person tired. That's why I tell people sometimes, they tell me, listen, I have problems sleeping. If it's a guy, I tell him, listen, if you have problems sleeping, open a Gemara, you'll see Satan will put you to sleep in 2 seconds. Why? Because who's the one that is in charge of people falling asleep? The Satan. So Satan doesn't want you. He's keeping you up because he wants you to watch, videos of filth. He wants you to do bad things. That's why he's keeping you up at night. But if you tell him, listen, if you're going to keep me up, I'm going to learn the Shas. I'm going to learn the Gemara. Automatically, you'll see yourself fall asleep in 2 minutes. It's not good, but it's good. Meaning, you have a sleeping problem, that's what you do. But this is for men. Women should learn the laws that are pertaining to them. They should not learn Gemara. It's not for them because there's a lot of things that a woman needs to know. Until she has mastered all the things she needs to know, she really has no business learning Gemara. But of course, in this modernized world where people don't want to do what they're supposed to and they only want to do what they're not supposed to, you have a lot of women that dafka want to learn Gemara. They walk around with mini skirts and tank tops, but they want to learn Gemara and put on tefillin. This is the stupidity and the obnoxiousness of the generation. But nonetheless, a person that really wants to learn Gemara automatically has to have an answer for a few excuses that the Yetzirah is going to give him. Number one, it's hard. To learn Halacha, and I'm talking about to learn the depth of Halacha, not just to learn yes or no, but to learn the depth of Halacha, is hard. It's hard. It's not an easy thing. That's one. So you're going to have to say it's hard and it's rewarding. Just like the Mishnah in Avot says, the reward is based on the toil, how difficult something is. The harder it is for you to learn, the more the reward is going to be. So already have that excuse is going to come and you have to have an answer for it also. Second, you need to focus. You need to focus for it to learn Halacha. Now you're going to say, wait, focus, how could I focus? There's kids running around, there's noise, there's this, there's that. Get used to it. It's never going to be a quiet place. If you go to a Kollel, you go to a yeshiva, it's the noisiest place in the world. It's the noisiest place in the world, which means that if you don't know how to study with noise, you don't know how to study. And quite frankly, you don't know how to work. Because in most places in society, there is a lot of noise. And if you don't know how to zone yourself out, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it in life. I remember on Wall Street, we had a bunch of people making calls, and anytime a new guy would come or a customer or somebody would come into the office and say, wow, it's so noisy here. How do you work? I would tell them, this is how we have to work under these conditions. What, every guy's going to have their own office and they're alone? No, dafka, you want it to be noisy. Why? Because there's more energy, there's benefits from it, perhaps you could learn from somebody else, and so on and so forth. The key is to understand is that the whole thing of I need to focus, I need to be really quiet, I need to have my cup of tea, I need to have my coffee, I need to have my this, I need to have my that, that's not reality. So anytime a person has too many prerequisites for them to focus, they should know they're going in the wrong direction. Focus means open the book and start and do your best. Start and do your best and go into the words until you're pretty much enamored by them, where you're literally forgetting that you're even in this world. That's the goal. That's the goal, and it doesn't matter where you are. You cannot be one of these people that is going to have a prerequisite of having like a dome around you, complete silence, and the second that there's any noise, that's it, you lose all focus. If you have that type of mentality, you're never going to make it in life. Not only in Torah, you're not going to make it in life. Because life is noisy. There's cars, there's planes, there's kids, there's wives, there's husbands, there's all employees, there's bells. If you're distracted by everything, you're not going to make it. Eliminate the known trend, the known distractions, whether it be your phone or a computer or whatever it is that's a known thing that distracts you, and that's it. Work with the rest of it. That's excuse number 2. Excuse number 3, you need to have a lot of basic fundamental knowledge in order to learn halacha. Now, if you've already know a lot, this is not an excuse anymore. But if you don't know anything, how do you get started? The same way everybody else got started, with nothing. You start with nothing. You learn what to do, and you learn who said it, why they said it, and little by little you build on that. Everybody starts at zero. Everyone starts at zero. And don't worry, the angel that taught you Torah in your mommy's belly for 9 months, each time you'll get to something, he'll remind you, and he'll tell you, no, you know this, you know this, you know this, and all of a sudden, after you read for 2, 3, 4 hours, suddenly a few things start to make sense to you, as if you've already known them. Why? Because you do know them, and you're just reminding yourself through the toil. Excuse number 4 is that the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is much bigger for learning halacha than it is for other things. Why? Because if you don't know the weekly parasha, it's not necessarily a death penalty. And it's not necessarily something that will lead to a death penalty. If you don't know the whole story of Adam and Adam and Eve, it's not necessarily going to lead you to a death penalty. If you don't know all the details of Parashat Noach or Parashat Bechukotai or the other parashas, it's not necessarily always going to lead you to a death penalty. But if you don't know the halacha, not only could it lead you to a death penalty, but it could lead others to a death penalty. Why? Shgagat Talmud ola zadon. The Mishnah in Avot says a person that makes an accidental sin as a result of intentional lack of study, their accidental sins are then counted as intentional sins. That if you don't study, and that's the reason you don't know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says those accidental sins are really intentional sins, because you intentionally didn't study. You intentionally didn't know. But if you study and you make accidental sins, because you just didn't get to it yet, then it's accidental. Which means that the Yetzer Hara that's trying to kill you is going to say, listen, I don't even want this guy to study. I don't want this girl to study. I don't want anyone to study. She's supposed to learn all the halachot of tzniut. She's supposed to learn all the halachot of Shabbat. She's supposed to learn all the halachot of Tarat Mishpacha. She also wants to get coffee with her girlfriends. She also wants that new cake at that new place in the mall. She wants that too. So she's going to walk around immodest, immoral, eat everything, and said, no, I didn't know. Yeah, you didn't know because you didn't want to know. Same thing with the guy. Same thing with the guy. He doesn't want to learn. Therefore, his accidental sins end up becoming intentional sins. So the Yetzer Hara is very big because what's the Yetzer Hara's job? Yetzer Hara is trying to destroy you. That's his job in the world. That's his job in the world. So the Yetzer Hara for learning halacha is extraordinary. Last but not least, you have the Gemara Masechet Gitin. Gemara Masechet Gitin, page 43a. Says that a person is never going to acquire Torah until he failed. What the Gemara says here, following, Rabbi Barav Una. Thereupon assigned an announcer before him to broadcast his retraction, and he expounded. He made a statement which was incorrect, and he got somebody to make a public statement that he made a mistake. But a lesson learned. What's the lesson learned? The verse says, and this stumbling block, meaning the Torah, is under your hand. This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 3, verse 6, which says, En Adam omed al divrei Torah, ela im ken nichshal bahen. That this stumbling block, this Torah is under your hand, is what is it referring to? Why is the Torah referred to as a stumbling block? Because a man does not arrive at a full understanding of the words of the Torah unless he has first stumbled in interpreting them. I too have stumbled in this particular issue. So here, the Gemara is teaching you that really the only way you're going to acquire the Torah is if you delve into it and understand the value of it. But despite you delving into it, you're going to make occasional mistakes. And instead of giving up and saying, I don't know anything, I'm going to just give up, you're going to say, wait a minute, I just messed up. But now I know this mistake and I'm never going to forget it. I'm never going to forget it, meaning that all those things that you studied, you may remember some of them, you may forget some of them. But what are you never going to forget? The things you stumbled on. The things you stumbled on, and it caused you embarrassment, it caused you to make a bigger sin, it caused you a mess. Those things you're never going to forget. So in essence, the stuff that you delved on, that you studied, that you worked hard on, you may remember it, you may not remember it. But what it did give you for sure is that it gave you a passion for Torah. It gave you the worth of Torah. You liked the Torah. You want the Torah. And that means that when you eventually stumble, you're going to know that this is an opportunity to rise even further. This also is in the Tikkunei HaZohar. Tikkunei HaZohar in Tikkun number 32, where it says on the Pasuk in Proverbs, chapter 24, verse 16, Ki sheva pa'amim yipol tzadik vekam, that for though a righteous person may fall 7 times, he'll rise. So Rav Ephraim says that a person falls, but if all of those falls, he's falling here, he's taking advantage of it, eventually he's going to become a big tzaddik. Why? Because he's going to use all those falls to elevate himself even further. And he has to fall. He has to fall because he doesn't know everything on day one. But the Tikkunei HaZohar says that why is this person that's falling 7 times called a tzaddik? So because this person that fell and went to the 7th level of Gehenom, went to the worst, but at least some rabbi, somebody had enough mercy on this person to speak the truth to them because they learned the truth. They fell themselves at some point. And now they care enough about people to tell them the truth. And even though they didn't change this person completely, at least they gave that person what's called irurei tshuva. Irurei tshuva is like the thoughts of tshuva. They want to do a tshuva. They have the inclination to do tshuva, but they just simply died before they did it. They died early. They died too young. So the Tikkunei HaZohar says that person that died and is in the 7th level of Gehenom, but he had this ilui tshuva. That ilui tshuva can actually take him out of the 7th level of Gehinnom, even though technically you're not supposed to come out of there. The person that has the ilui tshuva can come out of the 7th level of Gehinnom. But who's going to wake up that person? Someone else that fell. Someone else that fell because he knows the value of falling, he knows the value of the truth, and therefore he does whatever he can to, at the very least, give people the ilui tshuva. Of course, he tries to get them to do complete tshuva, but you're not going to succeed with everyone. Sometimes you'll succeed in a very big way, sometimes you won't. One extraordinary story that we just learned about tonight, or actually earlier today, where some woman sent a message to Rabbi Ephraim, and she says to him, Rabbi, I've been wanting to tell you my story and how you saved my life. And she writes in the story, she says, listen, I've been, going up and down on the spiritual ladder. And really, lately, for a while, it was going down. And my life was becoming a mess. Things were not working out. And I started, talking to Hashem one day. And I started crying to Hashem, please Hashem, I want to come back to you. I want to come back to you. I want to have the same feeling of connection to you as I had in the past. Please, Hashem, give me a way. Give me a way to do it. And she says, as I was crying to Hashem, my dog, which was laying on my bed, she says, all of a sudden my dog moves and has her nose hit my phone. Now, my dog never touches my phone, but she decides to get up and have, touch my phone. She presses on one of the videos that was supposed to play a song, but instead of the song, there was a commercial. What was the commercial? Your movie. Your movie, Rabbi Ephraim. There's a movie that Rabbi Ephraim made about emunah, fake emunah, real emunah, and so on. It played the movie, and it's exactly what I needed to hear. Instead of going to that music video, I listened to the entire lecture, the entire movie, and it woke me up in a way that was perfect. Not only because of what it said, but how it happened. I knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used my dog to bring me my message, to bring me my messenger. And that gave Baruch Hashem the siyata dishmaya to do complete tshuva. A dog helped to do tshuva. A dog obviously is a tool of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the point being is that it would have never happened had she not prayed for it. It would have never happened had she not wanted it. Because if a person doesn't want the truth, even if the truth jumps at them, hits them in the face, it won't do nothing. Another person could just simply say, who needs these commercials? And go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. So here, Rabotai, you have sometimes people get their hiulei tshuva, get their wake-up call, their desire to do tshuva by somebody that has fell. Somebody that's a Baal tshuva himself. And this, Rabotai, is when a person truly understands the law itself, the consequence of not knowing the law, of not following the law of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's one of the things that the Chazon Ish is trying to tell us. Now, here he continues, and he says, to prevent those few remnants from falling away, it's certainly an act of love and compassion. In addition to the natural difficulties of acquiring Torah and the forces fighting against it from without, there is great neglect within the Bet Midrash, which causes the students to be lax about studying Halacha thoroughly. Here he starts talking about people that actually go to the synagogue or the Bet Midrash, but they're not studying the Halacha thoroughly. They study Torah, they may even make a lecture, or lectures, or different videos about different things in the Torah, but in reality, their Torah is not from Shamayim. Why? He says, this causes students to be lax in studying Halacha thoroughly. Instead, the time is wasted on fabricated ideas and notions, on chidushim, on innovations that have nothing in them. That is from what Moshe Rabbeinu gave us at Mount Sinai. Even though the topics of study are similar to like fear of heaven, or perfecting a character traits, or some external examination of the halacha, this kind of study does not fulfill the desired goal of man on this earth, as long as it's not accompanied by practical knowledge of the laws of Torah as explained above. So you'll have, what is the Chazon Ish trying to tell us, is that you'll sometimes have a person go to the Bet Midrash, to the synagogue, open a book, but what they're doing is not considered learning Torah. You can have a person call themselves a rabbi, give videos on the internet, have tens of thousands of views, and every single person that's listening to them is going to stray against Hashem, is going to make mistakes, is going to desecrate the Torah, desecrate Hashem's name, and simply go against everything that Torah is supposed to be. How could that be? Because the Chazon Ish says, instead of them teaching the Torah as we were taught, instead of teaching the Torah like it is, like we have from our Masoret, all the way from Mount Sinai, all the way to today, they are too busy delving into their own ideas, their own philosophy, their own new insights, their own mentality, their own ideology. They can call themselves rationalists, they can call themselves reform, they can call themselves a modern, they can call themselves even orthodox, they call themselves whatever they want. But whatever they're teaching you has nothing to do with Torah. Why? Because you see that what they're saying is against what the Torah says. Simple. They may say things that make sense to you, like the Rambam says, like the Chazon Ish says. They may say, listen, you should fear God. Listen, you should be nicer to your wife. Listen, you should keep Shabbos even. But their definition of what keeping Shabbos is not the same definition of what Torah is. They'll tell you, listen, you're supposed to keep Shabbos, right? Okay, good. So part of keeping Shabbos is to have onik Shabbat, to have enjoyment for Shabbat, right? Right. Okay, so now you told me that it's hard for you to walk 20 minutes to the synagogue, right? So what you should do. So it's not onik Shabbat. Now, if you go to the synagogue and you arrive there sweating, that's ruining your Shabbat. Yeah, you're right, Rabbi. So I shouldn't go. No, you know what you could do? If you don't go, you're not going to really enjoy Shabbat either. Yeah, Rabbi, I have all my friends there. Okay, your social club. Okay, so you can't not go, and you can't go the way you're going. So what you do? Get yourself one of those tustusim. Get yourself one of those carts. We'll put a sticker on it and say this is the Shabbat cart. And this, unfortunately, Rabotai, has some rabbis telling people they can use these things. Of course, Gedolei Ador went against it and are against it. Amal, I said there's no such thing as a electric cart that you can use on Shabbat. There's no obligation for you to go to Shabbat. If you can't go, either because it's too hot or it's too difficult for you physically, stay home. Yeah, but what about Onik Shabbat? That's not Onik Shabbat. That's not violating Shabbat and using a cart that's practically a car on Shabbat. That's not going to give you Onik Shabbat. That's going to give you desecration of Shabbat. And a person that's going to learn from some rabbi or some speaker or somebody, it's going to tell you, no, in order for you to have Onik Shabbat, you're allowed to desecrate the Shabbat. No. This is why, Rabotai, sometimes it's important for a person to ask themselves, where is the source for what this rabbi is saying? And who else agrees with him? Now, he can tell you a source, but if you're not a scholar yourself, you don't know what to do with the source. He can tell you this is in the Gemara, such and such. And you can open the Gemara, but you have no idea right or left of what the Gemara is saying. He can tell you this in the Posek, Rav such and such said it. And you have no idea who this Rav is, but if he said some other rabbi said it, okay, fine. It's important for you to use your common sense. Listen, is what he's saying what the biggest rabbis in the world are saying? Is what he's saying in line with what Judaism has always been? Not what Judaism is today in the public, which is a mixed batch of good and bad, unfortunately. Some more bad than good at times. No, is this what we did throughout the generations? Is this what we did throughout the generations? Is this what was accepted throughout all of Judaism, throughout all of history? And you're going to say, listen, sometimes you're going to have a different strategy in your community because you're saying, listen, it doesn't say that I'm not allowed to do certain things. I'm not allowed to behave in certain ways. In the Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't even talk about this. So therefore, this is an HaShkafic issue. This is an ideological issue. And since the ideology of Judaism is not codified, there isn't like one specific book that tells you ilchot anger, how to deal with your anger. Ilchot of, doing, no, there isn't. It wasn't codified like the other laws. So therefore you would think, so since there is no specific codification for the HaShkafa, for the ideology, therefore all I have to worry about is yes allowed, no not allowed. Wrong. A very well-known Talmid Chacham by the name of Rabbi Yaakov Shapira has an extraordinary write-up that a friend of mine sent it to me recently, and it's definitely worth our time to learn what he says word for word. Because he deals with this topic in a very, very extraordinary way. I generally love to highlight Talmidei Chachamim that are alive, not just the ones that have passed, especially since the issues of ideology, of HaShkafa, are typically the most confused ones. People have no idea what to do with it. So he says the following. He says there was a question that came up. Question is, if you don't have to follow a single posek in Halacha, and you don't, then surely you don't have to follow a single person's HaShkafa or Da'at Torah when there's a disagreement. And he says, simple answer, this is wrong. Wrong ideology. Thinking that you don't have to follow a single person for HaShkafa is wrong. Why? It's wrong. And it's unfortunately represents the common view in many modern Orthodox circles that when it comes to halacha, you have to listen to your rabbi, but HaShkafa, they're simply opinions that are more subject to individual preference. That's the ideology of today. That HaShkafa, that ideology is simply your opinion versus my opinion. You are a modern Orthodox, I am Haredi, you are Hasidish, I am this, I am that. People think that just because you are this and I am that, therefore that we don't have the same Torah. Wrong. Or sometimes people will go even further. They'll even distort halacha, where they'll say, listen, I'm inviting such and such to my house for Shabbat. Oh, is that person is going to sleep at your house also? No, he's conservative, so he drives, it's okay. As if just because he's he follows the heretical views of the conservative Jews or the Reformed Jews, or sometimes, unfortunately, the modern Jews, it's allowed for him to drive because he's conservative. There's nothing more wrong with it, but this has to do more with the HaShkafa than it does have to do with halacha. And the reason is as follows, where it first starts with a person needing to know that this type of thought, Rav Shapiro says, is plain kfira, is heresy. Just as there is correct halacha, there's also correct HaShkafa, as mandated by the Torah, that you have to have them. As it says, Lo taturu achei levavchem, that you should not follow the ways of your heart. The Gemara says this is referring to heresy. That following the ways of your heart is the heretical beliefs that a person has. Any idea that disagrees with the opinions of the Torah, which is the Da'at Torah, says the Chinuch, which is one of the Sfarim that we've talked about in the past, about 800 years ago, and also the Mishnah Berurah, say that this type of behavior is heretical. This foreign concept, this type of mentality of thinking that you can just, have your opinion of what HaShkafa should be, and I'll have my opinion of what HaShkafa should be, is the heretical thinking or the heretical brainchild of Moshe Mendelssohn, Yimach Shimo, who said that Judaism doesn't matter as far as what you believe, but rather how you behave. This, you'll see, is also the types of belief system that's preached by Meza and his teacher Prager and all of the people that are like them. All these so-called rationalists, that's in essence what they're saying. Follow halacha, but as far as how and who and what and when and the HaShkafa, that's all subject to your own interpretation. The reality is, Rav Shapiro says, is that the idea of HaShkafa is a free-for-all, is a modern-day stain, a strain on the of the Mendelssohn Picot. And it was really the product of the Maskilim, the Enlightenment movement. And the truth is that Torah HaShkafa and Torah Halacha are both the possessions of those who have Torah knowledge, and those who have Torah knowledge only. So a violation of Torah HaShkafa, even if it doesn't violate any specific halacha, is a sin and is punishable in the same way. This is because the Torah demands, al pi halacha, if you will, that you have the Torah's hashkafa. That in essence, the Torah itself is obligating you to have a Torah ideology. And what I understand someone to mean when he says that there is more options in halacha is not that halacha is per se less authoritative, chas v'shalom, but rather that a new halachic questions arise almost every day, and therefore you have the contemporary Torah authorities debating and disagreeing over them. These new halachic questions have not been discussed by your predecessors and are first being dealt with today. Therefore, there's no explicit precedent or prior authoritative decision. In essence, the responses that you see today, or the debates that you see today among the poskim, it's not rediscovering the wheel. It's not new things that are being created, as far as by change or new innovations, if you will, they're changing the original law, but rather things that weren't discussed in the past. Weren't discussed in the past because there's new innovations in the world. There is the Shabbat timers, there's electricity, there is obviously automobiles, there's different medical equipment, how you treat medicine, there's certain things that are considered lesser of life risk today than they used to be considered in the past. So the poskim delve into these topics today that weren't discussed in the past because they weren't relevant in the past. So that new responses, new halachas, and so on is not saying that the previous halachot, the previous teachings are less meaningful or less value, chas v'shalom, but rather it's simply telling you that right now there is a debate over how to apply the pre-existing law into the current reality. But the Torah HaShkafa, though, the ideology on the other hand, although there are sometimes questions of how to apply an established Torah HaShkafa to individual situations, the core HaShkafa do not necessitate a from-scratch analysis. What the Rambam and the Rashba believed hashkafically applies to us today, and the Mesorah is much more clear when it comes to proper Torah beliefs than proper halachic decisions, since new technology and circumstances do not necessitate a new evaluation of HaShkafa. Here, Rav Shapiro is saying is that unlike halacha, that has had certain things that are new, if you will, new things, new technologies, new circumstances for the people, and so on, the ideology, if you will, didn't change. The Da'at Torah, the opinion of the Torah, of the Rashba, of the Rambam, of Moshe Rabbeinu, is the same then, and it's the same now. Nothing has changed. Few circumstances from time to time that are completely new would need a further review, but those are few and far in between. Meaning that the actual HaShkafa that the Rambam had is the very same one that we have to apply to our lives today. And even more so, he says, the Torah HaShkafa depends much more on the Mesorah than halacha does. And the Rambam's 13 principles of faith are nowhere to be found in the Gemara, and nowhere brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. Yet the Rambam, which the entire Shulchan Aruch is based on, 99% of the Shulchan Aruch is the Rambam. The Rambam says that if you do not believe in one of them, or you even have a doubt regarding one of them, you are considered an apikos, a heretic. And for all practical purposes, you're not considered part of Am Yisrael. So, for all of those people that say, no, listen, I don't need to believe in the 13 principles of faith because it wasn't codified into law by the Shulchan Aruch. This is completely apikosu. This is heretical in every aspect known to person that knows what Torah is. When somebody tells you that you don't need to believe the Mashiach can come every single day because they don't see a specific verse according to their understanding in the 5 books of Moses, or you don't need to believe in the resurrection of the dead because they don't see a specific verse in the 5 books of Moses, this is apikolsut. And many times you will see those very same rationalists, those very same heretics that we've called out in the past, be the very same people that preach this nonsense. Even though there's a Gemara that specifically says that if you don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, there's obviously you're not going to be resurrected yourself. It's a very severe punishment. The Rambam calls a person a heretic, where they're literally not considered part of Am Yisrael anymore. Their Judaism is on suspension. Now they're going to say, wait a minute, how could that be? It's not a halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, or let's say in the 5 books of Moses, that you have to believe it. It doesn't have to be an halacha for it to be something that you have to apply to your life. For it to be obligatory for you to apply to your life. There is something called HaShkafa, which is based on Da'at Torah, the opinion of the Torah, that you have to treat no different than an halacha from Mount Sinai. Now, of course, the heretics will disagree with this, but that's because they're not willing to change their lives. But if you ask all of the Gedolim, both alive and the ones that have preceded us, this is the way they've lived their life. If you look at the lives of the Arizal, you look at the lives of the Gaon Vilna, you look at the lives of all of the great rabbis among Am Yisrael, Rabbi Akiva Iger, Rabbi Akiva himself, the Chazon Ish, the Chafetz Chaim, all of the giants of the past, and you compare their lives, their behaviors, if you will, to the current giants, Rav Sternbach, Rav Kanievsky, Rav Yitzchak Yosef, Rav Mazuz, all of these giants, because of course you can't compare it to some average Joe that works at a supermarket with a t-shirt on. No, you have to compare it to the people that have delved into the Torah, meaning they know the most about it. The experts of the past to the experts of today. You see how they live their lives, how they think about what our responsibility. You see, it's the same thing. That's who we're supposed to learn from. We're not supposed to learn with some Joe Smith that decides that he knows better than the biggest rabbis in the world. That's not the way. You're not going to learn from some guy that says he's a doctor because he has a building, because he has patients, but he also has a killing record of killing about 80% of his patients. You're not going to go to a doctor like this. You're going to go to a doctor that has a track record, that has a history, that has a resume to match it, that has integrity, that has some type of teachings that you can depend on because other experts agree with. Not that there's some lone soldier or cowboy. So this is what the modern mentality would like people to think. Where they want you to think that if it comes to halacha, yes, you have to do it. But if it comes to HaShkafa, not so much. And there's nothing further from the truth. There's nothing further from the truth. And this is in essence what Rav Shapiro is telling us. He says that, I'm skipping around a little bit here, that when it comes to the issues of HaShkafa, unlike the issues of halacha that were codified and specified and so on, these great things, these HaShkafa were left for great Torah scholars to decide. Same concept when it comes to the teachings of today. How do we know what's the right HaShkafa? We look at the leaders. We look at the leaders of Am Yisrael. What are they saying we're supposed to do if something changed? If nothing has changed, then we obviously continue what has always been the Masoret of Am Yisrael. When a person disregards what the Masoret of Am Yisrael is and simply decides that they know better than the Chachamim, then you have to ask yourself, what if they're wrong? What if they're wrong? What if, okay, so they're saying that they know better than all the big rabbis out there. We're not talking about your local rabbis and your average Joes out there. No, we all do respect all the local rabbis out there, many of them being extraordinary Talmidei Chachamim. We don't learn from local rabbis as far as this is what the nation is supposed to do. We learn what the nation is supposed to do by the Gedolim, by the Gedolei Hador, by the leaders. So, if you're going to listen to some local person that doesn't care if you drive on Shabbat, that doesn't care if you are an adulterer, it doesn't care if you gamble, it doesn't care if you are in unethical businesses as long as you give tzedakah, doesn't care if you're doing all types of things that in essence are forbidden. Sometimes halachically, sometimes hashkafically. You're saying, no, but my rabbi told me to do it. Now, this rabbi, however you might like him, however good his speech is, however clever he is, when you go up to Shamayim, do you think they're going to consider his opinion like they consider the Rambam, like they consider the Rosh, like they consider the Baal Shulchan Aruch, like they consider the Rishon LeZion, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, or his father, the Maran, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef? Are they going to consider their opinion of the Ben Ish Chai like his? Are they going to consider the opinion of the Steipler Gaon like his? Are they going to consider his opinion next to theirs? No. Which means what? If I follow the biggest rabbis in the world, the ones that are supporting the Torah like it always was, I'm going to follow the biggest dayanim in the world, the people that have delved into the Torah so much that they became poskim, they became dayanim, they became the leaders. Even if they're not popular and the world doesn't know them and they don't have necessarily YouTube channels, but the point is, they have done what exactly the Chazon Ish is saying, what the Gemara is saying, is they've put themselves in a situation where the world exists for them. That's who they are. They're dayanim, they are poskim, they're amazing. Right? Some are famous, some not so famous, but nonetheless, no one can question how extraordinary these people are. And not just one. I'm going to rely on the Rav Kanievsky of the world, on the Rav Mazuz of the world, on all of the Rav Gidon, Ben Moshe, all of the biggest guys in the world that are alive, and also their teachers, the Rav Ovadias, the Rav Mutzafi, the father Alav Shalom, the Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul, his current Rav Mutzafi's rabbi, all of the great sages of the previous generation, and not just them. Their teachers, and their teachers, all the way back to the Rambam, to the Rosh, to the Ran, to the Gemara, to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's one way I can rely. Or I can rely on this one guy and perhaps maybe three of his friends, none of which are internationally recognized as Dayanim, none of which are internationally recognized even as Talmidei Chachamim, none of which are even internationally recognized as even rabbis, none of which are internationally recognized as even decent people. But they say that they know better than all of the biggest rabbis that we just mentioned. Which one do you want to rely on? You want to rely on the biggest, most important people that ever existed in the last 3,000 years, that all feed off of each other, learn from each other, and repeat what each other do for the last 3,000 years? Or you want to learn from Uncle Scrooge and Gargamel, and perhaps maybe a few Pikachus in between that have a YouTube channel and maybe even a local shul that's 5,000 square feet. Which one do you want to learn from? This is what a normal person needs to evaluate before they follow the so-called modern way, the new way, the rational way. You have to be smart. If the guy that's telling me is right, okay, great, he's right. He's right. He is an innovator. He is something special. I'm going to follow him. And he's going to get me to Gan Eden, right? Okay. If the existing Masoret, the existing tradition is right, and I follow them, I also go to Gan Eden, right? Okay. But what if they're both wrong? What if the Uncle Scrooge of today and the Gargamel and the Pikachu, they're wrong? Meza, Otero, and Kolkowski, and whoever follows them, they're wrong. Versus the Rishon LeZion, Chas v'Shalom, is wrong. Or Rav Gidon is wrong. Or Rav Ovadia is wrong. All the Rav Kanievsky, all the biggest leaders in the world, they're wrong. Which one is HaKadosh Baruch Hu going to rebuke? Which one? Is he going to rebuke you for following the biggest leaders of the world? Or is he going to rebuke you for following the Gargamels and the Pikachus of the world? Which one? If you tell them, listen, I followed the biggest soldiers you have, the most popular soldiers you have, the most devoted soldiers you have, the people that delved into your Torah day and night for 80, 90, 100 years, for 16 to 20 hours a day. That's who I followed. They made a mistake. It's not my fault. I followed them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're right. You are right. You did what was normal. You actually followed Da Torah. Even if they're wrong, you're still right. You are right. Why? You followed Da Torah. But if you follow the little Pikachus of today from your local community that nobody knows and nobody cares about, and even when they know, they don't care about. In fact, people can't stand some of these people when they get to know them. You follow them, and they made a mistake. What are you going to tell them? Oh, I followed Da Torah. Hashem's going to tell you, that's not Da Torah. Da Torah was millions of Jews that were following the same tradition since Moshe Rabbeinu, not that. He said he has a new Da Torah. They said they have a new Da Torah. You didn't follow Da Torah. You followed Dat Yachid. And one of the main things in Judaism is there is no Dat Yachid. There's no individualistic opinion, the opinion of the individual. No such thing. No such thing unless you are a giant among giants, which who is these people? They're making lectures in their cars or making stories up as they go. Who are these people? This, Rabotai, is what a person needs to understand. Why? Because even when the Gdolim made mistakes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected them. I'll give you a couple of stories that we could understand. One, you'll see HaKadosh Baruch Hu protecting a person in a logical way, and one you'll see HaKadosh Baruch Hu protecting a person in an illogical, supernatural way. One of the most, if not the most difficult issue in Judaism is the sensitive topic of agunot. Women that their husbands are gone, whether it be by war or they just gone missing, and there's no one that saw the person, the husband, die. No one saw them disappear. No one knows where they are. So you can't say to the woman, listen, you can just marry again. Why? Because the ketubah is a purchase. The husband bought the wife. She is in essence his property. He owes her certain things that he agreed to on the ketubah. Has to have a roof over her head, has to give her clothing and intimacy. These are the three major things. She, in essence, becomes his property. She obviously, he has to treat her the right way. He has to, if he ever treats her, disrespects her and things of that nature, there's ways to deal with it. But the point being is that she is his. She is his. So you can't just say, listen, this guy's missing for 2 or 3 years. You could just remarry. No, we can't. He's his property. Now, when can you do it? Is if you know, if you have evidence, you have witnesses that saw the person die. But what if nobody saw the person die? Or perhaps they saw something that may or may not be it. So the whole issue of agunot is a very, very difficult issue. One of the most complex issues in all of the Torah, because it's very sensitive, because the ramifications of being wrong could be extraordinary. For example, if a posek makes a mistake and the woman remarries and she has kids with the new guy, but then the old guy comes back into the picture, and now she's really not allowed to be with the second guy. The marriage, the new marriage is void. It's not a real marriage. You can't marry 2 people at the same time. Which means what? If they had children, those children are mamzerim. So this is a very, very big thing. So not all rabbis, in fact, most rabbis don't deal with this. Many times the Gedolei Ador didn't even want to deal with some of these because they're very big issues. And one of the things that Rav Ovadia, alav shalom, dealt with extraordinary precision and sensitivity were the issues what happened at war. When there were husbands, soldiers missing, and literally he would go through every single file, go through all the evidence, travel when necessary, interview people, do a lot of things to make sure that each woman, if she is allowed to remarry, she has the halachic permissions to do so without any worries. And he worked day and night to make sure that these women that were able to move on with their life in a permitted Torah way. And not just, no, go get married, worst case scenario, he shows up and, you'll just No, you can't. So now, one time this wicked woman, who was a journalist, a lefty liberal journalist, wanted to publicly disgrace Rav Ovadia. Publicly disgrace him. How? Say, these big rabbis, they don't know what they're talking about. And I'll prove it. So she went on a mission. How? She's going to go pretend to be a woman that lost her husband. No one can find him. And then she wants the halachic permission from Rav Ovadia to remarry. So she goes, she brings her whole file, obviously all fraudulent documentation, and she tells, she shows Rav Ovadia everything after a lot of review. Rav Ovadia paskins, you are free to get remarried. Your husband is gone. There's enough evidence to show that he's dead. That's it. You're allowed to remarry. She got this document in hand. She walks out. Immediately she runs to the phone to call her husband. We got him. We got the biggest rabbi in the world to make a wrong psak. She calls the office. We got him. We got what? What are you talking about? She goes, where's my husband? He died. Literally. The second he paskin, her husband died, he died. This is a supernatural way of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu protects the Chachamim. You can look up this story on the internet. Surely you'll find it. It's a very well-known story. How HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the Chachamim and will protect them in supernatural ways. But it's not always that. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect the Chachamim in simply with his Torah. One time, Rabbi Yashiv alav shalom paskined that a woman, her husband was missing for many years already. After reviewing all of the facts, going over all of the laws, obviously Rabbi Yashiv was one of the biggest rabbis in the world, not just in his generation, but even generations beforehand. He paskined, this woman is free to get married. She got married, and years passed. Suddenly, after a long time, probably 10 or plus years, the old husband shows up. The one that everyone thought that died. He shows up. So they come, the rabbi comes to Rabbi Yashiv. Oh, Kvod Rav, what are we going to do? Rabbi Yashiv was as a bigger lover of Am Yisrael as can be, but at the same token, didn't get emotional about these things to lose his cool like people do. Well, people say, oh, Mamzer made a mistake. Rabbi Yashiv, what happened? Tells, listen, you said the woman is free to get married. She got remarried, but the old husband just shows up. Rabbi Yashiv says, okay. See that shof? Go get Gemara Masechet Yevamot. So, but Rabbi Yashiv, what are we going to do? What does it have to do with the Gemara? Get the Gemara Masechet Yevamot. The rabbi goes and gets the Gemara, brings it to a Rabbi Yashiv. And Rabbi Yashiv says, open to page 87b. And that's where the psak is. The rabbi opens, he sees on page 87b, the Gemara says the following. If such a thing happens, where the husband's gone, halacha was followed to the T. All of the research was done, all the things were done, but mistake. The guy disappeared. She was permitted to remarry because they thought he died. She got remarried. He now comes back after many years. The Gemara says, Titzeh mizeh umizeh. She has to leave the current husband and she's not allowed to marry the old husband. That's the halacha. That's it. Why? Because the existing marriage, the new marriage, was forbidden because she was already married. And she can't, so that's why she cannot stay married to him. Because in essence it's considered as if she was in a Eshet Ish. And she can't go back to her old husband because she was with another man. So that's it. The Gemara already told us, that's the psak. We follow the Torah. We followed all the rules. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted this to happen. The husband is gone. Everybody thought he died. All evidence showed that he died. He's gone for 10, 15 years. Then he decides to come back. Gemara already protected us. Say, titzeh mizeh o mizeh. That's it. We follow the Torah. Torah already protected us. So this is why, Rabotai, if a person makes a mistake following the halacha of what the biggest rabbis in the world said, following the HaShkafa of the biggest rabbis in the world, you have the protection of the Torah itself that you can rely on. And you can go up to Shamayim and say, listen, Hashem, whatever I did, you decide right or wrong. But I did it because Rabbi Yassif said. I did it because Rabbi Ovadia said. I did it because Rabbi Yosef Karo said. It's not me. I followed out Torah. I followed out Torah. There's nothing to say. That's it. I followed out Torah. But if you go and you say to Hashem, listen, Hashem, looks like I didn't do it right, but that's because I followed this rationalist, this mentalist, the psychiatrist, and the neuterist. I followed all of them. Is that okay? Hashem says, yeah, let me show you where they are. Let me show you which chamber in Gehinnom they are. I'll put you right next to them. Why? Who are you following? Who are you following? This, Rabotai, is a critical lesson for a person to know. Halacha is critical. HaShkafa is critical. One goes with the other. You cannot go in Judaism, in Torah Judaism, one without the other. If you have the right halacha with the wrong HaShkafa, you'll end up being evil. If you have the right HaShkafa and the wrong halacha, you won't go in the right direction. But if you have the right HaShkafa and the halacha is right according to what the Dat Torah is, even if, let's say, Hashem wanted different, Hashem will still make that right. Why? The right halacha is first the right HaShkafa, then the right halacha itself. Meaning that if you decided what to follow based on the HaShkafa and the halacha of the Gedolim, that is what the right halacha is. You're following the right by following them. This is why you see, Baruch Hashem, why we're getting so much support, public support by Gedolim, big rabbis, for all of these years. Not just today or yesterday, but all throughout these years, you see one after another joining and saying, this is what we're doing, this is, what do you think of it? They see, and many times they contact us on their own. Why? You see, this is what Dat Torah is. We're not making up anything. We're following what they are saying. Which means that if we're mistaken, so are the biggest rabbis in the world. And guess what? If we're all mistaken together, we're all right together. But if we follow new, modernized ways, new ways that are more innovations of today, we have nothing to rely on. Nothing to rely on. This is what the Chazon Ish is saying to us. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu said to us. We have to follow the Gedolim. As Rabbi Akiva says, Am Yisrael is like a dove. When they have their wings, they can fly, but when they don't, they're just a simple piece of meat. The wings being the Gedolei Ador, the biggest rabbis in the world. When we follow the biggest rabbis in the world, we're flying. We're flying. We're in the heavens. We're with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if we don't follow the Gedolim, Rabotai, we have nothing to rely on. We have nothing to rely on. B'ezrat Hashem, this too will give each and every single one of us more chizuk to learn halacha, along with the right HaShkafa. To learn HaShkafa along with the right halacha. To delve into it. To really toil in Torah. To really know and want to know the truth. And not just say, listen, I know the big things and that's enough. There's never enough. Sometimes a person can make a mistake. Don't give up. Try again and again and again. That's how the Torah works. That's how the Torah works, Rabotai. If we make mistakes, that means we're going in the right direction if we keep looking. But if we make mistakes and we give up, that means we're wrong already to begin with. We're expecting the Torah to be spoon-fed to us. Torah is not something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoon-feeds to us. He wants us to toil for it. He wants us to fight for it. He wants us to protect it. He wants us to honor it. This is how we show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we love Him, by loving His Torah. That's what loving Hashem really means. It's not loving Hashem, oh, I love you, Hashem, and draw Him a heart sign, maybe a text message, some random number, some emojis. That's not how you love Hashem. Loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu is loving His Torah by toiling in His Torah. Toiling and toiling and toiling as much as we possibly can. And when we can't, we try to get somebody else to do it. Our kids to do it, our husbands to do it, our local Kollel to do it, our rabbis to do it. We try to have somebody toiling in Torah that's connected to us at all times. So we can fulfill ourselves. We ourselves want to make sure that brit, that covenant that we have with Hashem, that Torah, is continuing day and night, so He doesn't have to destroy the world. May not necessarily be the whole world, but you don't want your own personal world to be destroyed. So you want the Torah to be connected to you at all times. You want somebody to be learning for you at all times. You yourself want to be learning at all times. This, Rabotai, is a critical mission for each and every single Jew. Each and every single Jew. And needless to say, the righteous Noahites that want to learn more kosher Torah so they can get to where they need to have more kosher Torah in the world also. The better Am Yisrael does, the more light is going to be given to the nations. But if the righteous Noahites are all going to pretend like they're their own rabbis and everyone's going to decide which laws they keep and which laws they don't, they're going to in essence make up their own religion, obviously they'll go in the same direction as the heretical Jews also. All of us have to be supporting the same tradition that we've had for the last 3,000 years. Whatever the sages said, that's what we do. Why? Because that way we know we have something to rely on. B'ezrat Hashem, this will give each one of us the chizuk to continue staying connected to the tradition, to the Masoret, the same way it's always been. And anytime there is confusion, anytime there's a misunderstanding, we go back to the book that tells us to go to the rabbis, to go to our sages, and follow what they said. Because that is Da'at Torah. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.
Shalom v'cha, everyone. I'm making a short message for all the people that ask me all the time if they have money coming in and they want to help with kiruv, but they also want to help the poor people that we usually do during the holidays, but also during the year. They always ask me, is there something going on? And the truth is, there's always something going on. I always tell you during the lectures of different stories that we deal with, whether it's to help somebody come up with money for a surgery, or to help a poor family have food for Shabbat, or to help pay for tuition for someone that simply doesn't have it. And the stories go on and on and on and on. And in a moment, you're going to see something that just happened in the last couple of days. A family that's so poor in Eretz Yisrael that did not have money to buy simply normal mattresses. They were sleeping on something the equivalent of metal. The only thing this reminds me of is the concentration camps, Hashem Yishmo. And these stories come across our desk on a regular basis, and after verification, we send our team members to go and see and make sure that everything is legitimate. We try to do our best to help, and there's just not enough time in a day to make a campaign for every single cause. So what we do is we simply give, and we trust that Hashem will give us to help people, because there's just not enough time. And sometimes time is very sensitive, so it takes time to verify things, but also it's just one of those things where you really can't wait for people to decide whether they want to help this poor person or not. If there's a need, we're there. And B'ezrat Hashem will continue to be there. So for any of you that is contemplating what to do with that maaseh, with that 10% that you give, that you need to give as a Jew and also as a non-Jew, for the sake of Torah, whether to give it just to kiruv, or to give it to help people do tshuva, or to give it to help poor people, and how to mix it. Bottom line is, our organization does it all, and we do it on a regular basis, and there's simply not enough, because there's so many people that need help. It breaks your heart. And you'll see that in this video, our team member, it breaks your heart, our team member starts crying. That's how hard some of these situations are. And we try to publicize a lot of the different videos without embarrassing anyone and showing faces, to show people that their money is going to good places, to help people not only do tshuva, not only publicize the Torah, publicize Hashem's name and His glory, but also to help people survive in this difficult world. So if you want to help us, you want to join us, you want to be a partner with us, B'ezrat Hashem is very, very happy to be a partner with you, and we look forward to hearing more and more good news, so we can tell you that you are part of another big miracle that happened to someone in Kollel Israel. Call to B'cha v'Atzlacha.
אנשים יקרים, אני באתי פה לבית של משפחה נזקקת האמא אושפזה בבית חולים עם כאבים מאוד חזקים בגב. הבאתי לה עכשיו סל מזון לשבת. חשכו עיניי, אני בא לי לבכות, תראו על איזה מזרון היא יושנת, כל הברזלים בחוץ, תראו, על זה היא יושנת, מזה היא קיבלה דלקת שלא עוברת לה, תראו, זה המזרונים שהם יושנים אליהם. אני חייבת את העזרה שלכם, אני פשוט ישבתי על המיטה, כל הברזלים תקועים לה בגב, תראו מה זה, אני פשוט נוגעת בברזל. על מה אמא יושנת? יושנת על ברזלים, בגלל זה כואב לה הגב, כן? עכשיו אנחנו מביאים לה מזרונים חדשים, ונשים לה על המיטה. תודה רבה על ארגון בעזרת השם ולרב ירון שדאג לפני שבת למשפחה נזקקת למזרונים חדשים. הם ישנו המשפחה על מזרונים קרועים עם ברזלים בחוץ. ארגון בעזרת השם אין עליכם בעולם.